Hello, hello, and welcome. So the meditation that you're about to hear was something that I recorded live at a workshop in my university in the Netherlands, where a group of young minds came together to envision the more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. And this was the most powerful and beautiful sessions that we've held, a space where we allowed ourselves to imagine more vividly and more honestly than we usually do the world that we truly want to live in. Because if we look around today, the way that most of us are living, the way that most societies are living, the pace of life, the way that systems are organized, how our societies are structured, the way that we eat and learn and play and relate and feel, can begin to feel like the only story that humanity could possibly play out. But if we zoom out, historically, we see that this way of living is very, very recent. And that for most of human history, we knew that we are nature and that nature is us. We were connected to life, and thus we were connected from the nature that emanates through all of us. Though somewhere along the way, many of those connections that connection got fragmented, and we believed that nature abandoned us. And the story that we inherited began to feel like the only story available to us, one of separation, a world built upon fear, coercion, fragmentation, disconnection, separation. But this isn't the only story. It is simply one story that humanity has been living. And today many people are beginning to sense that other stories are here. And at the same time, humanity has become the single most influential force driving life on Earth. And our species now has the power not only to transform ecosystems, but to destabilize entire planetary systems. And with this level of influence and of power comes a corresponding level of responsibility, whether we consciously acknowledge this or not, and whether we all choose to step into it or not. And so in so many ways, this disconnection from nature and from, frankly, life itself is manifesting and is manifesting itself across so many different systems. And our species is now being called to step into a new role. We are asked to choose. Do we want to continue being separate from life? Or remember again? And to step into our role as custodians, being in service to life. And if this is our role, a natural question follows: how does a world in which we step back into being one with life, in service of life, look like? Well, Charles Eisenstein calls this the more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. And this world takes many forms. It doesn't just look like one thing. It's not just one reality. Realities exist in a superposition of states. Though the common thread that comes up when we imagine this more beautiful world our hearts know is possible is connection, care, and interbeing. And so this meditation is an invitation for you to become aware of what this more beautiful world feels like for you. And only with awareness comes the choice to embody it, to bring it into existence. And a very, very powerful part of this meditation is I invite you to then at the end notice the qualities that you are being called to embody in this more beautiful world that your heart knows is possible, and choosing to embody it here and now. That is the first step. The first step is actually awareness. But then after that awareness comes the choice to embody those qualities. And when we embody those qualities of love, of connection, of care, of unity, of interbeing, of being in service of life, we naturally align with that timeline. We vibrate at that frequency where that timeline exists, that more beautiful world. And then in a more material sense, embodying those qualities allows you to build and create and speak and show up in such a way that actively brings that world even more into existence. And I want to preface that, like, I will do a bit of prompting, but there is no exact picture that needs to come up, and there's nothing that needs to be forced in terms of how vivid it looks like, how vivid it feels like. The fact that you are here today and starting to expand your awareness on this more beautiful world that your heart knows is possible, you open that door. And yeah, the whole vision doesn't need to be so vivid or complete in the next 20 minutes. That's not the point. It's to simply kind of open up that possibility of that world a little bit, give you just a glimpse of it, even if that's what comes up today. And that's already very powerful in and of itself. Yeah, and I'll record this meditation and I'll send it so you can come back to this. And also, yeah, I'm not talking. So again, if you want to feel free to get in a comfortable position, you can also get on the floor, on the table. You can, again, if it feels right, to close your eyes. You can also maintain a soft gaze on the floor in front of you. And again, I invite you to just simply reflect on why you are here now. And there is no right answer or maybe answer that comes to mind, but just sense your own sincerity. And so again, I wanted to just say that nothing needs to be very vivid or detailed. Even simple feelings or impressions are very, very valid. And I invite you to not force an image or sounds or feelings or expect a perfect vision. For some, images appear quite clearly. For others, it may be a feeling, a sense, or simply a sounds or a direction. Sometimes nothing very clear at all. And all of that is as it is. It's completely okay. Just like I said, the very fact that we are bringing into awareness that different stories of this world are possible is the biggest step. So I'll first start by, in this more beautiful world, what is the story that people tell about why they live this way? And again, nothing very clear has to come up, even if you don't have the proper words. It can just be a feeling. Or a word. And part of this story, what values guide how people live? Is it love, connection, honesty? Just simply notice what comes up. I invite you to reflect on what is considered a good life in this more beautiful world. What are the most important aspects, pillars? Perhaps it's being able to follow and pursue creativity in the most authentic way. Perhaps it's being connected with family. Perhaps it's health and connection. I invite another question. What does, in this more beautiful world, what does healing look like and feel like? And by healing, not just from the perspective of disease, perhaps, but even emotional, and the healing of families. What is that? What does healing look like in all those different ways that healing can look like? Now I invite you to imagine an ordinary day in this world. Where do you find yourself? And if a geographic location comes to mind, I invite you to also think about the environment that surrounds you, regardless of geography in this world. Imagine you looking around. What are the first things that you see and notice? I invite you to reflect on what kind of activities fill the day that you lead in this ordinary day, in this more beautiful world. And in those activities, perhaps what work or contribution feels meaningful for you to bring in this world. And what sounds do you notice around you? As the usual sounds that you would hear in this more beautiful world. Perhaps it is birds chirping, or laughter, or busyness. Sounds of water flowing, whatever comes to the awareness that you are. Another question I invite in this, related to this, the past questions, is who do you spend your time with in this more beautiful world? And a different now kind of questions in this more beautiful world. How do people exchange their skills and resources, passions and value? How does that look like? And again, just simply allow. It can be tempting to want to force things to come up, but just simply allow what wants to come up in the awareness that you are. For some questions, it'll be more conducive to images and sounds and vividness to come up. For some, not as much. Just simply allow what comes up here and now. And in this more beautiful world, how do people meet their needs? Perhaps starting with basic needs like food and water and shelter. How do people meet their needs for safety and security for themselves and their families, wider community? In this more beautiful world, how do people connect to each other and show that they care for themselves, for one another? And now bit of a different set of questions. How are decisions made in this more beautiful world? Yeah, and who gets a say in those decisions? The last couple questions are, what happens when people disagree with one another? In this more beautiful world, how do we navigate conflict? And related to difficult moments, how do we respond to grief and loss in this more beautiful world? And how do people care for one another during difficult times? And one of the last questions before the last part of this visualization is, how do people relate to nature? How do we relate to nature in this more beautiful world? in this last section, I want to take it a bit. This is where it gets a bit deeper and a bit more powerful. Imagine you are already living in this more beautiful world as I've invited you to imagine, and from that place you briefly look back at the present moment, at this reality, the world as it can seem. Today, notice what feels different. Notice what has changed. I invite you to bring attention to you inside that world, not the building or the systems, but you. So in this more beautiful world, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Is there some peace? More belonging? Or connection and joy? I invite you to reflect on how in this more beautiful world, how do you greet people? What energy do you bring when you meet another person? Is there a bit of more openness and presence and care? And when you turn inward and meet your thoughts and emotions, how do you meet your thoughts, feelings, emotions in this more beautiful world? Is there some more patience, honesty, and compassion? And when the day comes to a close, how do you feel as you lie down to rest in this more beautiful world? Is there a bit more sense of peace? An underlying trust that you are part of something greater than just yourself? Just notice what feelings may come up. Maybe not much at all as well. And the last question in this visualization is, in this world. So I invite you to gently ask yourself, honestly, what qualities do I embody? Perhaps it's kindness, connection, care, courage or curiosity. Just allow the main one or two qualities that arise naturally to stick for you. Notice perhaps what feelings, how the body responds when you imagine living, embodying those qualities. Just let them settle into your breath, your presence, your posture. And remember that the exact details of this more beautiful world may not matter as much as they seem. You know, the place, the structures, the systems, those may change. Reality holds many, many possible paths. And a more beautiful world can take many different forms, but the qualities that gave birth to that world are what are very, very powerful. And for me, those qualities are connection, presence, care, wisdom, and love. And when we embody these qualities, which are always accessible to us, but can always be chosen here and now, we actively align ourselves with the world where they shape reality. So as this meditation, this powerful visualization comes to an end soon, I invite you just to reflect, what quality would you begin embodying now, here and now, to embody the more beautiful world that your heart knows is possible. So as you reflect on that, perhaps it feels right to take a couple of deep breaths. Or to allow a smile on the face, or to exhale a bit deeper. Whatever feels right to integrate in the next minute or so. And as we complete this visualization, just I invite you to imagine a moment later today or sometime this week when this quality from this meditation comes back to you. Something from this meditation even. Perhaps it's a feeling or an image or the quality that you want to embody. And when that moment comes, just pause for a moment. And remember that the more beautiful world we imagine today begins with the way that you choose to live here and now. Because a more beautiful world is not something we wait for or a distant future. It gets called more and more into your reality every time one of us chooses to live, to embody connection, care, presence, or the other beautiful, expansive qualities that came to mind, came to your heart. So thank you for bringing your imagination, presence, and hearts here today. You feel right, you can gently open the eyes if they are closed when you feel right. be ready and gently energized to come to the room around you, here and now.